Hi everyone, Amanda here. Today on the podcast, I tell a story that's a little bit different from what we normally cover on the podcast. I am talking about a serial killer. She does do some pretty gruesome things, though I avoid most of those details. But if you're a little squeamish or if true crime is not your thing, then you might want to skip ahead to go and listen to Rita's story, which is excellent. I hope you enjoy anyway. Thank you for listening. Hi, everyone.
Hey there, guys.
This is Amanda.
This is Rita.
And you're listening to I Don't Know Her,
the podcast about women that you've probably never heard of, but you should have, and today you will.
So we're still doing remote recording, obviously, because our whole country now is pretty much shut down. We are in the state of Washington. Our stay-home order has been extended to May 4th.
Mm-hmm. Which is a bummer, but we are going to go by the guidelines and stay home as much as possible.
Yeah. And so recording remotely is tricky for us still, but I think we're starting to get a little bit of the hang of it.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. I'll just say that. It's weird.
It's real weird, especially for Rita on her end. She has to have her tablet set up so we can like see each other via Zoom, but then her computer is the one recording. So it's a little bit laggy. So yeah. I apologize. Our last episode at the beginning, especially, there were quite a few giant pauses.
It was very awkward. It wasn't that we were trying to be awkward. It was just how it's recording. So bear with us.
Yeah, we're getting the hang of it. Yours truly was actually on a different podcast as a Zoom audience member. I was on Love It or Leave It. If you haven't listened to it, it's a great political comedy podcast. And they were offering up like 25 people could be in their live Zoom audience who had had tickets to Washington shows that were canceled. And so I was one of the first 25 and I was able to get in. And so did my wife's boss. And my wife was recently laid off, and out of nowhere, John Lovett was like, Amanda Mead, tell me about how things are going for you. And I was like, well, my wife got laid off and her boss is on this call.
Oh my gosh. So Amanda went, bus thrown.
Yeah. I immediately was like, what the hell did I just do? But it ended up working out. He's a really great guy. Obviously, he would love to be working, but the kind of work that they do is remodeling, and most construction has been deemed non-essential. Mm-hmm. So when that was handed down, they had to shut down shop. So It's not like he was like, yeah, I'm going to screw this lady. His business is stalled now. So.
Yeah. So she did a little whoopsie, but it all smoothed over. Yeah. And you actually said you were on for like a full 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, because he came back to us and was like, now I want to talk to Amanda again. And it was really, really fun. And John Lovett was very funny. And our friend / my wife's boss, James, was very gracious about the whole thing. But if you haven't checked it out, you should. It's quite funny. And it was really entertaining to be doing that as a live audience member because I miss everything.
She misses humanity. So do I. You know, as much as I've complained about people and my interactions with them in the service industry, my God, I would fucking pray for a Karen right now to give me something to talk about.
You need a Karen in your life sometimes.
I do. I need a queen of caucasity to do something for me.
What can you even talk about at the end of the day right now?
I know. I'm like, wow, I have nothing to complain about. So now I'm just like complaining about the cat. The cat looked at me weird.
So today is Sunday, and this is also Palm Sunday.
Yes, it is.
So Rita was telling me about as you guys have already heard us complain about Idaho in this whole situation. We've got some special people over in Idaho, which we're very close to. Rita, tell them about the pastor in Coeur d'Alene.
Yes, there is this pastor in Coeur d'Alene. It was reported by the Spokesman Review, a local paper here in Spokane, that he is holding church and he's actually encouraging people to gather, and he's actually come in contact with people with COVID, and he's still saying, he was quoted saying that this is a test, that it's a test from God. And so they're going to push through this, and that it's just, he said in quotations, this is just a flu, and he's still encouraging people to gather together. And that to me is just so socially irresponsible. And he's basically, if he gets arrested for this, which I think he should, he's putting people's lives in danger. I see that as being a platform of like some kind of religious persecution, which it's not.
It's not.
Like, you have to play by the rules, hun. Just because you believe in God, which I do too, doesn't mean that I get to throw that around and use it as an excuse to endanger people's lives.
No, and he's not alone in this problem either. I wanted to save it for the podcast, but this morning I was scrolling through Twitter and there was this video, I think it was NBC News or something like that. There was this reporter who was standing there at this, like, I think it was in Florida. It was Ohio. All of these people were heading to church, like a line of cars. And the reporter was holding the microphone 6 feet away from this lady in her car and was like, hey, are you going to church? And she was like, of course I am. I'm going to church. And he was like, you're not afraid of getting COVID? And she was like, no, I'm not afraid of getting COVID. And he was like, what about all the people that you could infect? And she was like, I am bathed in Jesus's blood. I am covered in Jesus's blood. I am safe.
Oh, no. That is ridiculous. No.
And
it does not work like that.
And then the reporter was like, ma'am, but what about the people that you could potentially infect when you leave here? Like, maybe you think nobody at church. He was like, no. She was like, no, I know everybody at church. We're all bathed in Jesus's blood.
Oh, jeez.
And
that is just moronic.
Oh, it's totally moronic. And then the guy was like, well, but like, what if you go to the grocery store? She was like, I go to Walmart, the grocery store, Home Depot, Lowe's. I go there every day. I was like, no.
You're doing bad things. Stop.
So, yeah, that's where we're at in the state of affairs in a lot of places.
And those people vote, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure that you go out and vote and cancel out the craziness.
Yes, please. Please don't let them be the voice of the country. Oh, God. So
those could be as a lump sum, the queens for today. Queens of caucasity.
Yes, there we go. On a lighter note, I have personally been having trouble in this kind of darkness, being able to like do something active with my body. And so I mentioned it to a couple of friends and we started an accountability group. So every day we text each other some kind of anecdote or picture or whatever, or video of us spending at least 10 minutes a day doing something active. And it could be whatever is at your level of activity. So Rita's in the group.
Yes, I am.
And Rita's been working out with her kid.
Trying to keep him active too. It's really hard because he like wants to go outside and like play basketball, but then like the neighbor kids want to come out and play basketball, and I'm like, no, we can't do that. If they come out and play, you have to let them play, and if they're not out there, then you can play. But even that, I'm like, surfaces are shared. It's hard for him, he doesn't understand. Well, he understands, but it doesn't mean it doesn't suck. So I told him about this thing, and so he's all about it, but I think he's done. He didn't want to do it today.
I have been walking the dogs a lot.
Yeah, you have. You've been walking the dogs a ton.
And today the weather wasn't great, and I didn't really feel like walking the dogs anyway, because we did over 3 miles yesterday, and that's actually too long for our puppy. He's only 7 months old. So, but I really wanted to make sure that they'd had some good exercise outside and had the chance to go somewhere and do something, because they're getting stir crazy too.
Oh, yeah.
But today I did a video workout, like a 15-minute full body workout. And afterwards I was like, I fucking hate my life.
Well,
my thighs are like jelly.
I did a run walk yesterday and went up the hill. For people that don't know, Spokane has the South Hill that goes pretty steep straight up. And I usually go up that hill and run up it and run down it. And the run up was very difficult, and the run down was slow, but still got out and did it. And I do appreciate an accountability group, because, you know, me by myself, I'll convince myself to do nothing. So it is helpful. So if anybody out there just has a friend, a family member, a coworker, something, and just to check in on people too as well, and make sure people are, you know, in some way staying in touch.
Yeah, I think it's important for the social connection as well. And I'm hoping that at some point during this, at least, you know, maybe I could go for a bike ride with somebody as long as we're 6 feet apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I just, it's going to be really hard for 2 more months potentially to be stuck in this holding pattern. So I'm just trying to come up with ways that we can help each other out and help ourselves out.
Well, I believe went first last time, didn't I?
You did go first last time. So I think that means it's my turn.
Yes, it is.
And I went way out of the box today.
Ooh, okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Have you heard of Belle Gunness?
I don't know her. No.
She's one of the most prolific female serial killers and one of the first known Black Widow killers in the U.S.
You can't see it right now, but my eyes are like big as saucers. Serial killer? We've never gone there before.
I know. And and in the past, when I've thought about doing it, I decided, no, you know, mostly our podcast is about like uplifting people. But at the same time, we've talked about having complicated women. And I think women also get often like treated like, oh, well, you know, women couldn't possibly be this or that. And the other day I was watching this television show on the ID network, and these 3 teenage girls had been really close friends for a long time. And then one of them went missing, and there had been rumors that she had been at this party. And so the running theory for the police was that they had all gone to a party when they weren't supposed to because they snuck out. And at the party, probably the girl who went missing probably took some drugs, OD'd, they all panicked, and they like hid her body somewhere.
Okay.
When the reality, when they like confess to what actually happened, that's not what happened at all. These 2 girls purposely plotted and carried out the murder of their friend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was pretty gruesome. And I was like,
what was the benefit of the murder? They just didn't like her anymore? Or?
Yeah, they just didn't like her.
That is crazy.
It was really wild. But we often think like, oh, girls don't do that, or they're not capable of that, or women don't do that, they're not capable of that. So I wanted to tell the story about somebody who decided to upend that stereotype.
Fucking do it. Okay.
Belle Gunness was born Brynhild Paulsdatter Storseth.
Oh, so that's why she's a killer. It was that fucking name.
She was born on November 11th, 1859 in Selbu, Norway. So she's Norwegian. She was the youngest daughter of 8 children born to her parents, Paul Peterson Storseth and Berit Olsdatter.
Olsdatter.
These are very Scandinavian names.
Yes.
So her family lived on a small farm outside of a town called Innbygda, Norway, and they were pretty hardy people. You know, they were pretty good stock. And Brynhild was no exception. She actually eventually grew up to be close to 6 feet tall. Ooh. And weighed like 200 pounds.
Wow.
So she was a big lady.
Yeah.
There's a very commonly told story from her youth that is somewhat unverified, that when she was about 18 years old, she was pregnant and went to a dance, and there was a guy there who attacked her and kicked her in the stomach, and she miscarried.
Oh.
And the guy was from a really wealthy family, so he faced no consequences for what he did. And that's like the event that like really flipped the switch for her.
Okay.
But that's, again, unverified. But according to many sources, that her friends and acquaintances and family were like, that was the moment she changed.
Okay.
So for a few years after this incident, she worked on the farm of a wealthy family before she decided to come to the United States in 1881. And she was 22 when she did. She was following in her sister's footsteps. She changed her name to Belle when she came to America because it was obviously more easier to say than Brynhild.
Yeah.
And she worked as a servant in Chicago. When she was in Chicago, she met a man named Mads Ditlev Anton Sorensen.
Jeez.
These Norwegians like their names, man.
Yeah,
it's like four or five names of everybody.
I shouldn't talk. My son has four names. So,
and your husband is Norwegian, right?
Yeah, he's part Norwegian, half.
Yeah, me too. I'm half Norwegian. My grandfather came over on the boat. So
nice.
So but I have no connection to Norway. I don't know anything about Norwegian culture. So she met this guy, Mads, and he was a security guard at a department store. They fell in love and got married in 1884, but luck just didn't seem to be on their side.
Okay. Dun, dun, dun.
The first home the couple shared burned to the ground, but with the money from the insurance, they were able to start a business. They started a confectionery store in downtown Chicago. It's like a candy store. Once again, though, it appears that they just couldn't catch a break because this business also burned to the ground in 1895.
I bet she's setting these fires.
And with the fire insurance money, they were able to buy a new home.
Well, BT dubs, the fact that this serial killer owns a candy shop.
Take you to the candy shop.
Yeah. This is the stuff of nightmares. Yes.
So over the years, the couple had at least 4 children, but it's really unclear whether any of them were biological children. They did have foster children. So there were 2 kids named Caroline and Axel who both died in infancy of what was at the time diagnosed as acute colitis, which has symptoms of diarrhea and fever and vomiting. And the couple had 2 other girls, Myrtle and Lucy, and then they started fostering another girl named Jenny Olsen. So now they have these 3 daughters, and they had these other 2 who are dead. In 1900, the Sorensen home once again burned to the ground.
Wow. Nobody's noticing this pattern?
I know. I just am even the insurance adjusters didn't notice it. I don't know. So pointing to their unfortunate luck, Belle insisted that her husband, Mads, take out a larger life insurance policy than the one he currently had.
No.
So he was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll take out a larger policy. Now, there was only one day, July 30th, 1900, that his old life insurance and his new life insurance would overlap at the same time. Just one day. And by sheer coincidence, that's the day that Mads died.
Oh, so when you mean overlap, it means both policies are valid.
Yep.
Okay.
Just that one day.
Just okay.
So the old policy was supposed to end on July 31st, and the new policy would start on August 1st or whatever. So there was just July 30th when they were, the new one started on the 30th. The old one was going to end on the 31st. So that one day was when they were both active.
Highly suspicious.
Yeah, it's a little suspicious. And in fact, his family was like,
Oh, really? His family got wise?
Yeah, they were like, I think that she killed him for the insurance money. And so the first doctor to look at his body said, yeah, he died from strychnine poisoning, which can have symptoms of diarrhea, vomiting, stomach aches.
Ooh. Did her babies have life insurance policies?
They sure did.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, his family's like, this bitch did it. Yes. However, their family doctor declared that he had already been treating Mads for an enlarged heart and that was the cause of the death. And in the end, they couldn't prove it either way because these doctors had conflicting opinions. So no charges were ever filed against Belle, and she walked away with $8,500 in insurance money in 1900.
That's a lot of money.
Lucas, tell us what $8,500 is today money versus 1900.
$264,316.39.
I would say, personally, I think it's probably like maybe 15 to 20 grand, don't you think?
Oh, at least. I would say it's probably like 30,000. So she used that money to buy a 42-acre farm outside of LaPorte, Indiana, where she moved with her foster kids. So shortly after she purchased the farm, it just seems like bad luck was everywhere because that's when the boat and carriage houses burned to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
But no worries, she was able to use the insurance money to renovate the property. In LaPorte, Belle met a man named Peter Gunness. He was a local butcher whose wife had died just a few months earlier. And he had 2 daughters, and you know how that whole situation was. A man couldn't possibly raise kids without a woman. So
yeah.
And she was looking for a good Norwegian man, and there he was. The two hit it off instantly, and they married on April 1st, 1902. And they decided to turn the farm into a hog farm, and they built a huge hog pen with some butchering facilities on site. So Peter had his 2 daughters, an older girl named Swanhild and a 7-month-old infant.
Swanhild.
Some good Norwegian names.
Wow.
So just after a week after Belle and Peter married, his infant daughter died in the home while alone with Belle, and it couldn't be determined what she died from. And only 8 months later, Peter himself died after reaching for something on a high shelf and causing a meat grinder to fall and land on his head, smashing his skull.
No! Death by meat grinder?
Yeah, it's crushed his skull.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or did somebody bludgeon him with it?
Yeah, maybe. So the coroner was like, I don't think that's what happened. So, he was pretty well known in the community as a really skilled butcher. And they were like, he would never be that clumsy around dangerous machines.
Yeah.
He wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm going to reach up to this top shelf, tippy toe, and then knock something down. So the coroner was like determined to try to find that he had been murdered. But there wasn't enough evidence to find that Peter died of anything other than an accident. However, it was reported that Julie had told her classmates at school that her ma had killed her pa. And he had beat her over the head, or she had beat him over the head. And then, but then when there was a coroner's inquest, like an actual court proceeding, and they asked her, and she was like, she denied ever saying it.
Oh.
So the investigation turned up nothing that they could actually prove. But Peter's family was like, fuck no, that was not an accident.
Yeah.
And his brother was like, I got to get that girl out of there. So he whisked away Swanhild, Peter's oldest daughter. And it turns out that she would be the only child to ever survive living with Belle Gunness.
Jeez. Wow.
So around 1905, Belle began her search for love once again. She placed personal ads in a whole bunch of Norwegian and Scandinavian newspapers all across the Midwest.
They had personal ads for love in
1905, they sure did.
Yikes.
So I want to read you what the actual ad was.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let's hear this Tinder profile.
The last line is my favorite. Okay. Personal. Comely widow who owns a large farm in one of the finest districts in LaPorte County, Indiana, desires to make the acquaintance of a gentleman equally well provided, with view of joining fortunes. No replies by letter considered unless sender is willing to follow answer with a personal visit. Triflers need not apply.
Don't be trifling. I like how she puts in there that she's got large property and, that's appealing.
Right. And so she's basically saying, I'm wealthy. I've got a lot of land. I want somebody who's equally well matched to me in finances. Like, I don't want to have to take care of your ass. Mm-hmm. So don't even bother coming if you can't. Don't even bother answering if you can't come visit and stuff like that. Yeah. So according to her mail carrier, Belle was inundated with letters. He said that she got sometimes up to 8 a day.
Oh, that's a lot.
And her neighbors reported that men frequently came to visit, and she was often seen on carriage rides in town, dressed in her finest, with a handsome man of means who had come to woo this well-to-do female farmer. But it seemed to many that Belle frequently struck out when it came to love, because many of the suitors didn't stay for long, disappearing within a few days of their visit.
No! Oh my God, what is she doing?
So one such man was a guy named John Moe from Elbow Lake, Minnesota. Another was George Anderson from Tarkio, Missouri. Both of them brought along $1,000 that Belle insisted that they have with them to show her that they were serious. See, the $1,000 would help her pay off what was left of her mortgage. So John disappeared within a week of arriving, and George was in bed when he suddenly felt some kind of presence in the room. And he opened his eyes to find Belle standing over him while he slept. And he said that she had like the most murderous, heinous look in her eye. And he was so unnerved by it that he like shooed her out of the room, locked the door, put his clothes on, and went out the window and never came back.
Oh my gosh.
And he left all of his belongings there. He was like, fuck this. I'm out. While she wasn't able to find love with these men, she wasn't starving for attention. In 1907, she hired a farmhand named Ray Lamphere. He was known around town as like a drunk. He liked to gamble. He drank a lot, but he was really good at carpentry work. And she really liked the work that he did on the farm. And soon he was also helping her in the bedroom.
Tuning up that engine.
That's right. And they had quite a sexual relationship, but Belle was in it just for sex. She was like, I just want to get my good lay on and then you can leave. Ray, however, was starting to fall in love with her, but Belle was like, you are not it for me, dude. You are a poor drunk man who's basically my servant. That's not what I need. She was looking for a man with some money, right?
Yeah.
So she continued her search via her personal ads. So there was a man named Ole Budsberg who arrived in April of 1907 after he mortgaged his Wisconsin land and showed up to Belle's farm with thousands of dollars in cash. He was never seen or heard from again. And when his children found letters from Belle among his things in Wisconsin, they wrote to her asking after their father, and she told them she'd never seen him. He never showed up.
Oh.
Another man named George Barry had $1,500 in cash on him when he went to work for Belle Gunness. He was supposed to be a handyman, but he was never seen. Herman Knitzer took $5,000 from his bank before heading out to, quote, marry a rich widow. Abraham Phillips took $500 in cash and a diamond ring to court this whole farm maiden. Then there was Olaf Jensen, Christian Hinckley, Charles Nyberg, Ton Leon, E.J. Tiefland, John E. Bunter. All of them left their homes across the Midwest, reportedly intent on courting this rich farm lady.
Oh my gosh,
and none of them were ever seen.
Wow.
It seems that Belle finally found her match in Andrew Helgeline. He was a bachelor farmer, so he'd never been married, from Aberdeen, South Dakota. Over the course of many months, the two of them exchanged really sappy love notes. And I want to read one of them to you that she wrote. To the dearest friend in the world. No woman in the world is happier than I am. I know that you are now to come to me and be my own. I can tell from your letters that you are the man I want. We will be all alone with each other. Can you conceive of anything nicer? My heart beats in wild rapture for you, my Andrew. I love you. Come prepared to stay forever.
She is a snake in the grass.
Yeah, she sure is. So in January of 1908, Andrew showed up with a check for $2,900. That was his entire savings that he wiped out before he had left South Dakota. So once he got to LaPorte, he and Belle deposited the money into her bank account. Like, they went to the bank together. The bank says they saw him. Ray Lamphere, her farmhand who's in love with her and having sex with her, this time he saw that there was something different about this guy. Like, he was like, oh, she intends to actually marry this motherfucker. And he was pissed. And he confronted them and he was like screaming and yelling at them. And he made this big scene. So that's when she was like, you're fired. Get the fuck off my property.
Oh, wow. That's not good. I'm sure he's seen a thing or two.
Yeah, maybe. More on that later.
Oh, okay.
So Andrew, too, was gone shortly after this incident, but that didn't stop Ray from coming around to the property, even though Belle had already replaced him with a new farmhand named Joe Maxon. And he kept coming to her house and saying creepy things and doing creepy things. So Belle was like having him arrested for trespassing. She even went to the courthouse and tried to get them to declare him insane.
Oh, geez.
There was like a whole court ordeal and they were like, actually, I think he's fine. So she said that he was a threat to her family and to her, and the whole town was on her side. They were like, this guy's a scoundrel. He's trying to get her. That poor woman and her children are being harassed by this man. So she went to a lawyer and asked him to draw up a new will, and she told the lawyer that she was afraid for her life and the lives of her children, saying that Ray had threatened to, quote, kill her and burn her house down. In her will, she left her entire estate to her children. After the meeting with the lawyer, she went shopping. She brought home a toy train, 2 gallons of kerosene, and some cakes. And she made them a big family meal of meat and potatoes.
No. I can see where this is going.
The next morning, on April 28th, 1908, Joe Maxon awoke to the smell of smoke in the house. At first, he thought Belle must be cooking breakfast, but he soon realized that the smell was actually burning timber. He jumped out of bed and he tried to bust through the door that went to the other part of the house where the family was to try to alarm Belle and her children and get them out, but he couldn't break through the door and the door handle was already too hot. So he managed to get himself outside. And within moments, and he's like banging and screaming and yelling. The neighbors arrive. They're trying to do the same thing. They're like throwing big stones to the windows to try to like, hey, get out, get out. Mm-hmm. But nothing was happening inside the house. And it was just being engulfed in flames. When the fire department came, it was no use. All they could do was like make sure it didn't spread. And the house burned to the ground. After it was nothing but ashes, the investigators began combing through the ruins looking for the bodies of Belle and her children, Philip, age 5, Lucy, age 9, and Myrtle, age 11. They found what they were looking for in the basement, the bodies of 3 children next to a headless woman.
What?
Right?
Why would she have no head?
Why would she have no head? That's weird, right?
Very.
Immediately, the fire was deemed an arson, and with the condition of the woman's body, they thought this has to also be a murder. And the police had a prime suspect right in their eyes. Ray Lamphere. So they immediately arrested him, but he denied having anything to do with the fire or with the deaths of those who were inside of it. Meanwhile, Asley Helgeline was searching for his missing brother, Andrew. Among the things Andrew left behind in South Dakota, Asley found the letters from Belle. Unlike his brother, who was taken with her by her letters, he was immediately suspicious of her. So here are some of the things that the brother read and was like, that bitch is after his money.
Yeah.
Take all your money out of the bank and come as soon as possible. Leave neither money or stock up there, but make yourself free from Dakota so you will have nothing more to bother with up there. And most chillingly, she wrote, do not say one word about it to anyone, not even your nearest relative.
Jeez.
I'm getting a good shot of the cat.
Sorry, she's being nosy.
So Asley had begun writing to Belle himself, inquiring about his brother. He was like, where's my brother Andrew? What have you done with him? So at first Belle told him that she saw him, but he left. And he was like, there's no way. Where did he go? And she was like, he went to Norway, I think. I got a letter from him saying he was in Norway. And he was like, okay, I want to see that letter. Why don't you send it to me? And she was like, oh, I put it in this drawer, but, I have problems with this guy, Ray, who's been taking care of our house. And I think he might have done something with the letter. Likely story.
Likely story, yeah.
So Asley didn't buy it, and he told her that he was coming down there himself to investigate. And that's when he saw the newspaper story about Belle's farmhouse burning down, and he was like, on the next train.
Oh, jeez.
So once he got to LaPorte, Asley demanded that he be able to search the rubble of the house for clues to his brother's whereabouts. Even though it had been a week since the fire, investigators still hadn't located the head of the charred woman's body, though they had found a set of dentures that her dentist confirmed belonged to Belle. And so
the dentures can be removed.
They said, oh, it must be her because it was here. So when Asley arrived, people were still sifting through the ashes, and so Asley joined them, but he didn't find anything that was of note. So he was leaving the farm when he noticed a soft spot in the dirt. And he asked Joe, the farmhand, if Belle had asked him to dig up or bury anything lately, and he confirmed that she had. So it didn't take long before everyone set to work digging up a trench that Belle had Joe fill in just a month earlier. Belle had told Joe she wanted him to cover up trash piles, and indeed the first layer they uncovered was garbage. But below that, they discovered a gunny sack, and inside, a pretty gruesome find. 2 hands, 2 feet, and 1 head. Yeah. Asley knew right away who it was, even though it had been badly decomposed, that was the head of his brother, Andrew.
Ugh.
So there were dozens of these same impressions in the entire pig pen. So they started uncovering all of these soft spots in the earth. And as the men started digging, they uncovered bags upon bags of torsos and hands. Soon they found body parts that belonged to 5 men, then 8 men, then 11 men, and then they stopped counting.
Gosh. Oh, jeez.
So Belle had learned some skills from her husband, Peter Gunness, the butcher. And so she had started chopping the men's legs up at the knee and then the arms at the shoulder, and each head had been removed. Many of the heads had then been sprinkled with lime or lime stuffed in their ears to try to accelerate the decomp so that they wouldn't be recognizable. So a lot of the remains that they found, they couldn't match them to anybody because they didn't have the technology of like DNA or anything like that. And
she's a tricky little motherfucker, isn't she?
She really is. One of the bodies that they were able to identify was that of Belle's foster daughter, Julie Olson, whose remains were uncovered on her 18th birthday. Belle had told everyone 2 years earlier that Jenny had left for college.
Oh, jeez. This woman is terrible.
So some of the bodies contained traces of strychnine poisoning, and most of the skulls showed trauma to the head. So she definitely had like her specific methods of killing.
Yeah, which most serial killers do.
It was very clearly like she either liked to poison or she liked to bludgeon them over the head.
Yep.
So the headlines were obviously very sensational. Like this became a huge national story when they started uncovering all of these bodies. And so she earned some nicknames. One of them I loved, which was called the Indiana Ogress.
Ew.
And they labeled her farm a death garden.
Yeah.
So people, like, obviously they were digging up this land. And so people started to show up, like just regular ass people started to show up to watch it happen.
Jeez.
And so vendors were like, oh, there's all these people coming. I want to make some money off this shit. So there were vendors.
You want some popcorn?
Yes, they were selling ice cream, popcorn, soda. No. And there was one vendor who created a Gunness stew.
Gross.
Isn't that gross?
That is pretty freaking morbid.
According to Mental Floss, up to 20,000 people came to the farm in a single weekend.
Jeez.
Like, people's fascination with murder is pretty wild.
It is pretty intense, yeah.
So rumors began to spread that the headless woman's body found in the basement wasn't, in fact, Belle Gunness, but yet another victim, and that Belle had absconded in the night. So Belle was known as a pretty large woman. Again, she was nearly 6 feet tall and by some accounts was over 200 pounds. And according to some reports, the body found inside the farmhouse was estimated to be no taller than 5'4" with the addition of a head, and around 150 pounds.
Oh, that's a big mistake right there.
But it's hard to tell because they were burned.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but bones don't lie. Like, the length of a skeleton doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So, but again, they weren't great at science at the time. So
yeah,
it's really hard to tell. So people began to see Belle everywhere after this. There were reported sightings of her all over, from Chicago to Mississippi to New York, even to Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh, jeez.
Even though it was clear that Belle Gunness was obviously not a saint, the authorities still had the problem of Ray Lamphere, who was their best suspect for the arson and murder of Belle and her children. They had no evidence to actually prove that she wasn't the body in the basement because her dentures were there, and that did prove that she was somehow related.
Yeah.
So on May 22nd, 1908, Ray was put on trial for murder and arson, and in November of that year, he was found guilty of arson, but he was acquitted of murder. He was sentenced to 21 years in state prison. However, within a year, he died of tuberculosis while in prison.
Whoa.
Shortly after his death, a minister came forward with a wild claim. He said that Lamphere had confessed to him on his deathbed, and that the confession was also verified by another prisoner who said Ray told him all these same things. So are you ready for the story of what possibly is the real story?
Possibly could have happened? Yeah, I'm sure.
According to the Reverend, Ray knew of Belle's murderous tendencies and that he had in fact helped bury some of the bodies, though he denied participating in any of the murders. He said that after the suitors arrived at her house, Belle cooked them a big meal and then drugged their coffee. When they were sufficiently delirious, she would hit them over the head with a meat cleaver. Another method of murder was more subtle. Sometimes she waited until the men were asleep and chloroformed them.
Oh.
After they were dead, she carried their bodies to the basement where she went to work dismembering them. Sometimes, if she was too tired, she simply chopped them up and fed them to the hogs.
Oh yeah, pigs will eat anything.
Yeah. Ray also claimed that the headless woman in the basement was definitely not Belle, but in fact a housekeeper she'd hired from Chicago, and he knew this because he helped Belle escape. He said Belle had cut off the girl's head, attached weights to it, and dropped it into a swamp. Ray also claimed that Belle dressed the girl in her clothing and took out her dentures and placed them next to the body to make it seem like it belonged to Belle. Ray said Belle had chloroformed the children and carried their bodies to the basement, where she laid them next to the woman's, and then she had set the house on fire and fled.
Jeez. That's pretty dark.
It's pretty dark. So yeah. Belle got away with a lot of money. Ray claimed that she had killed 42 men.
Jeez.
And taken at least $1,000 from each of them, and many she'd taken much more from. Her estimated wealth, according to Ray, was $250,000 in 1908. So, Lucas, I want you to jump in again. If she was worth $250,000 in 1908, what would that have been like before the COVID crisis?
That would be $7,203,751.10.
Investigators were able to confirm that though there was some money left in a savings account, all of the other accounts had been empty days before the fire.
Yep. Oh, you totally know what happened there.
When Belle's sister Nellie Larson was interviewed by the Chicago Examiner, she said this: "My sister was insane on the subject of money. She never seemed to care for a man for his own self, only for the money or luxury he was able to give her."
Mm.
One of the best leads on where Belle might have gone, if in fact she was alive, was Mississippi, where a woman matching Belle's description owned a huge property and traveled in wealthy circles. Another claim was that she was hiding out in a cabin in Saskatchewan, and there was a guy in Havre, Montana, who was trying to orchestrate her escape. A lot of other, the favorite theory, though, of a lot of people is that Belle went by a new name of Esther Carlson. In 1931, Esther Carlson was arrested in California for poisoning a Norwegian-American man, and she was also linked to at least 2 other suspicious deaths. And allegedly, Esther had photographs of children, which she did not have, that looked a lot like Belle Gunness's children.
Ooh.
And
did that lady get charged, or?
She died while awaiting trial.
Oh no. Did she match Belle's description?
According to some people, she did. But it's good. It's helpful to note that this Esther woman was arrested in 1931, and Belle was born in, let me double check my notes, 1859. So that would have made her 72 years old.
Oh, I see.
So, who knows? That it could be.
Who knows?
But
yeah.
It seemed like people said that. I think I read somewhere that Esther, at the time she was awaiting trial, was only in her 50s. So either she was lying about her age, or it couldn't be her. So in 2007, there was someone who really wanted to put this to rest. And so with permission from Belle's family, the body buried in Belle's grave was dug up and tested for DNA. However, it was too degraded to actually have a conclusive result. So they still don't know if it was Belle in the grave or not. So the Gunness farm continued to attract people to it, becoming a tourist destination for many years. Even now, some people travel to see it and claim that it's haunted. The LaPorte County Historical Society Museum has a permanent Belle Gunness exhibit, and her infamous tale has also been turned into musical ballads, and she's been the subject of many, 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 many true crime podcast episodes. And that is the story of Black Widow Belle Gunness.
Ooh, man, that was a wild ride.
I was just like, I want to do a killer.
I do like a good story like that. Me and Amanda have both said before, we love true crime. Amanda's a little bit more into it than I am. just a little bit. Yes. I dug it. It was awesome.
Well, and I like, other than the killing of obviously murder is not great and not cool, but
yeah,
I think it helps that it was so long ago. It's well over 100 years ago that this all happened. So it doesn't feel as gross because it's not like right now. And I like the killing of the children part is super dark, obviously, but
that's pretty intense.
It is. And I think that it's very unusual to have a killer like her who like physically bludgeons them and then dismembers them. That's super rare.
That's what I was saying. Her style of killing is very intimate. The chloroforming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's really put her hands in there.
Yeah, poisoning is usually like female serial killers are very well known as poisoners, but she would only poison them to make them delirious, and then she would kill them.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you where I
pretty dark.
got my sources. I used Hell's Belle Gunness, Black Widow of the Midwest by Kathy Weiser Alexander on a really great website called Legends of America. Corpses in the Pig Pen, The Tale of Indiana's Most Notorious Serial Killer by Lucas Riley for Mental Floss. The LaPorte County Historical Society Museum. How a Farm Girl Became the Butcher of Lonely Men by Larry Getlin for the New York Post. The Twisted Tale of Belle Gunness, America's Most Infamous Black Widow Killer by Daniel Rennie for All That's Interesting. And Murderpedia and Wikipedia.
Very nice.
Thanks. I liked telling a killer story.
Yeah. And very different for us too. Yeah.
Very different. All right, your turn. What do you got for me?
All right. Today I'm going to be talking about Patricia Bath.
Bath as in a bathtub?
Yep.
I don't know her.
She's the first African-American woman to complete a residency in ophthalmology, and she pioneered the invention of laser eye surgery.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So Patricia was born on November 4th, 1942, in New York City's Harlem neighborhood, to her father, Rupert, and her mother, Gladys. Her father was an immigrant from Trinidad, and he actually was the first Black motorman of the New York City subway system. And her mother was a housewife and a domestic worker. And Patricia noted that her mother saved every penny of her earnings to pay for her children's education.
Very cool. I mean, noble.
Yeah, Patricia's family were like her biggest champions. They encouraged her to pursue her dreams, to be goal-driven, and to really dive into her academic interests. She's actually a very smart child from the get-go. Patricia said her father, who was also a former merchant marine and an occasional newspaper columnist, told her stories about his travels and the value of exploring new cultures. He really put it in her head that to go beyond, don't just, stay in one place. When Patricia showed a spark of interest in science, her mother went out and bought her a chemistry set, which I thought was really neat.
I love that. It's adorable.
It is. And also the fact that her mother saw her interest and was helpful with it.
Yeah.
I tried to do that for my son. It's like if he takes interest in something, we'll go get a book or we'll watch a documentary about it.
Yeah, in last week's episode, Margaret Burke White's mom bought her that first camera to try to encourage her to go pursue this as an occupation or at least a hobby. And I think it's really important to have that kind of support in your life.
Who knows where we'd all be if we all had that support.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be a different world. So Patricia had one brother. I couldn't figure out what her brother's name was. They both went to Charles Evans Hughes High School, where both of them were very smart, and both of them flourished in science and math. Patricia's teachers were quite taken with her as well. She was a really good student. She was really helpful. She was very attentive, which is like a teacher's fucking dream. They appreciated, she was a really hard worker, and so they encouraged her to pursue her strength, which was in science. And she went for it. At the age of 16, she was one of only a handful of students that got to attend a cancer research workshop sponsored by the National Science Foundation.
That's really cool.
The program's head was Dr. Robert Bernard, and he was so impressed with Patricia's insight. She actually made discoveries during this project, and he incorporated her findings in a scientific paper that he presented at a scientific conference. And she's 16 at this time.
16?
She's 16. He also gave her credit as well, which, yay.
Yeah, that's always helpful.
Yeah. So the publicity surrounding her discoveries earned her a Mademoiselle Magazine Merit Award, which I looked it up, and it's just, it's an award, but I was wondering, is there a scholarship or something like that? But it's just a reward of of recognition. Patricia was quite gifted intellectually. She was a really fast learner, and she was able to retain information really well. So she ended up graduating in 2 years.
So she was like 18?
Yeah. Or around this time, yeah, she was 18.
Wow, that's impressive.
She moved to, when she graduated high school, she went to Hunter College, which, are you familiar with Hunter College?
Wait. She graduated high school in 2 years?
Yeah.
Oh, so she was probably 16 then when she graduated.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, because I was like...
she graduated high school in 2 years.
So at first I was like, wait, are we talking about college or high school? Because to graduate at 18 of high school is not a big accomplishment. That's what most of us do.
Sorry, to correct that. Yes, she was 16 when she graduated, and then she went off to college.
She went to Hunter.
She went to Hunter College to get her bachelor's degree in 1964. So when she moved from Hunter College, she went on to Howard University to pursue her medical degree.
And Howard is a historically Black college.
Yes. And when the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. happened, Patricia was quite affected by it. She decided within herself to dedicate herself to achieving the dreams that King had spoken of. She started working with what was called the Poor People's Campaign.
Yeah, that was Martin Luther King's campaign.
Yeah. So she led and organized Howard University medical students to provide volunteer healthcare services for the Poor People's Campaign in the summer of 1968.
That's awesome.
That same year, Patricia graduated with honors from Howard. She decided to go back and serve her own community, and she accepted an internship at Harlem Hospital. She also began pursuing a fellowship in ophthalmology at Columbia University, which is a very good school.
Yeah, that's an Ivy.
Yeah. So through her studies there, in her research, she discovered that African Americans were twice as likely to suffer from blindness as any of the other patients that she was attending.
Huh.
And that African Americans are 8 times more likely to develop glaucoma than any of the other patients that she was attending. So her research drove her to develop a community ophthalmology system, which increased the amount of eye care given to those who were unable to afford treatment.
So was there any reason why Black people were more likely to go blind or have glaucoma?
She just noticed that the numbers spiked. I don't know if there was a particular reason or if it was genetics, things like that. What she was leaning to was the fact that in poorer communities, especially in Harlem, there was less access to proper eye care.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was like an access issue or a genetic thing or an exposure thing. But it would make sense, obviously, if any one of those things could be the reality.
Mm-hmm. So too, when she was collecting her data on blindness and visual impairment at Harlem Hospital, she was the only one doing so because they didn't even have an ophthalmologist on staff.
Huh. That's really an initiative. She's got a lot of initiative.
Yeah. So she ended up persuading her professors from Columbia to operate on blind patients who couldn't afford any eye care without charge at the Harlem Hospital. And she was actually on the team that provided that first eye surgery at Harlem Hospital, and that was the first one that had ever happened.
That's really cool.
So that was pretty cool. In 1973, Patricia completed her residency in ophthalmology, becoming the first African-American person and woman to do so. She decided at this time to move to California the following year to work as an assistant professor of surgery at both Charles R. Drew University and the University of California. It was there she became the first female faculty member in the Department of Ophthalmology, another first.
Yeah.
At UCLA's Jules Stein Eye Institute. She also, while she was there, co-founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness, which established that eyesight is a basic human right that nobody should suffer from blindness due to the lack of medical care or lack of finances, especially poor communities and elderly people.
I wish that was like the way it was, right? You know, I mean, I wish that there was like free help for people with like eye issues and dental issues.
Your eyes, your ears, and your mouth, like those are essential.
Yes, they really are.
They are. So through this position, she pioneered a new, what they called a medical discipline and community ophthalmology to deal with preventable blindness through education, public health outreach, and local provision of medical services. She even traveled and treated patients in other countries. She went to Nigeria and she went to Pakistan. And she was teaching this new medical discipline along the way.
I like that she's not just focusing on the United States, but taking it elsewhere.
Yeah. And also like just encouraging the education of how to do proper eye care.
Yeah.
In 1981, she began working on her most well-known invention, the laser phaco probe. It's a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. So what she did was she designed a machine that harnesses laser technology. The device created a less painful and more precise treatment of cataracts. So I researched the device. It's really cool looking. I actually don't like my eyes being touched, so it was really hard for me to watch it. I have a little bit of an eye phobia thing. It's really hard for me when I go get fitted for contacts. I freak out a little bit. I get really cold and sweaty and I start shaking. Yeah.
That's how I feel about
the eye doctor and I'm shaking.
That's for me teeth stuff.
I just don't like it. So the device uses lasers, suction, and irrigation to remove the affected lens. So if you're looking at it sideways, you know how a lens looks like a little, it's thick in the middle and thin on the sides.
Yeah.
So what it does is it goes in with a laser. It basically dissolves the lens, and then they stick a probe in and irrigate out the dissolved lens and cataract. And then they insert a artificial lens that won't deteriorate, and it's a brand new lens. And so this combination of technology provides a non-invasive bullshit.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounded real gross.
As well as an almost permanent solution to cataracts.
But that's cool. I'm glad that that's like helpful to people,
available.
But it's gross.
Yeah. But actually, I guess it's really quick. Like the technology now is really, really fast. I don't know how it was when it first came out. She received a patent for the device in 1988, becoming the first African-American female doctor to receive a patent for a medical purpose.
Wow. She is just knocking down these firsts.
I know. She also holds patents in Japan, in Canada, and Europe. With her laser-phaco probe, this invention was able to restore sight of individuals who had been blind for more than 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so these people are being able to see. So her invention now has restored eyesight to millions of people all over the world. By 1983, Patricia had helped create the ophthalmology residency training program at UCLA Drew, which she also was a chair member, becoming, in addition to her other firsts, the first woman in the nation to hold that position.
Jesus Christ, this woman was like, I just want to get all the firsts. Good for her, but my goodness, save some for someone else.
She's eating all the cookies. After holding that position for 3 years, Patricia decided to take a leave, take a sabbatical, and concentrate 100% on research. She resigned her position as chair. She followed her research pursuits as a visiting professor at centers of excellence in France, England, and Germany.
Nice.
So when she was in France, she worked at the Rothschild Eye Institute of Paris. In England, she worked at the Loughborough Institute of Technology. And in Germany, she worked at the University of Berlin and the Laser Medical Center. She's collecting data and research the whole way through. She returned to the U.S. in 1993. She retired from UCLA. And I guess they have like what they call an honorary staff. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's like somebody who is still on the faculty and can come at any time and teach.
Oh, okay. So like you basically are a teacher there forever?
Yeah.
Okay. She was actually the first woman to be added to an honorary staff at UCLA. That's another first. So the data she collected and the research she submitted is like freaking priceless. The information that she collected. Her research is still used today. It's being taught in schools all over the world. And her data was published into over 100 medical papers that she wrote.
Wow. That's really impressive.
So Patricia's work has like so many freaking honors and awards. I can't name all of them. We'd be here forever. So I just chose a few that stood out to me. So in 1999, the Smithsonian Museum included her in their Innovative Lives exhibition. Did I say it? Exhibition.
You did. I think you did it.
In 2001, American Medical Women's Association inducted her into their Hall of Fame. In 2011, American Academy of Ophthalmology inducted her into their Museum of Vision. 2013, the Association of Black Women Physicians Lifetime Achievement Award, she was awarded. And she was featured in Time magazine under the title First, Women Who Are Changing the World, for being the first to invent and demonstrate laser cataract surgery.
She's impressive.
She's very impressive. One thing I did notice about Patricia is that she hits on that she did struggle through her career with sexism and racism, but she didn't want to dwell on it too much. She was very brief about it. I found that a little interesting. Like, I don't know if it's something she doesn't want to talk about or she doesn't think it's worth talking about.
My guess is she didn't want that conversation to distract people from her real accomplishments and the work she was doing. It's just like, yeah, it's a fact of my life. I deal with this every damn day. But if I talk about it every day, that it's going to, it's going to overshadow the work that she's been doing.
Yeah. Or like she's doing so much work. It's like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to sit and dwell and live in it. There was an interview she did with the Smithsonian, and I took this quote out of there. I feel like maybe this hits on the why for me. She said, "Sometimes I want to say to people, just look at my work. I've had technological obstacles, scientific obstacles, and obstacles being a woman. Yes, I'm interested in equal opportunities, but my battles are in science."
Yeah, I think that really is her saying, I just want to focus on my work. I don't want to have to talk about racism and sexism.
So Dr. Patricia Bath died last year on May 30th, 2019 in San Francisco. She was only 76 years old. All the info I could find was that she died of cancer-related complications.
Oh, that's pretty, it feels young.
Very young, 76.
Especially with all she accomplished. It's like you want her to stick around so she can, be given more awards and whatnot.
Yeah. She is survived by one daughter who is a psychologist and a single granddaughter. And that is what I got.
Well, thank you for sharing her story. Yeah. Remind us again of her full name.
Patricia Bath.
Patricia Bath.
Yeah. And I got my information from the Smithsonian, the interview that she did there, and also the exhibition she was part of. I got information from Time magazine, from Wikipedia, and from biography.com.
Lovely. I enjoyed that.
She is quite impressive. She's like a no muss, no fuss woman. Like just from what she put out of like her in her interviews, she was very sharp. I liked it.
I wish we could have heard her. I'd be interested to hear what she sounds like or what she looks like when she's talking. Yeah. But you said you could only find clips in German?
I did. I found this like cartoon that was in German and then another video that wouldn't upload. Like it just spun and spun and spun. So I was like, okay, I don't know. And that was it.
Well, we could always put it up as a bonus material sometime if we wanted.
There you go.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed our ladies today.
Wildly different.
Wildly different. Totally. One's saving lives. One is
killing folks by the dozen.
Oh, very cool. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Lucas, for being our lovely editor.
And we want to say thank you to Jennifer Finch of L7, who provides our raging music at the beginning of each one of our episodes.
And we thank you guys for continuing to listen through this pandemic, and we hope you're all safe, healthy, and staying home.
All right, guys, till next time.
Goodbye.